Excellent choice. Now we're stepping into the dark heart of the series. Here's where your story really evolves. Paranoia meets revelation, and the audience finally sees what "Before I Died" truly means. So I sat there in that motel room, staring at Ben's face frozen on the laptop screen. The glow from the monitor threw ghost light across the walls, making the shadows look alive. His voice echoed through the cheap speakers, low and shaky. "If you're watching this, they found me. I couldn't breathe for a second." The way he said it, quiet, resigned. It wasn't the voice of a man who'd given up. It was the voice of a man who knew exactly what was coming. The file timestamp was dated 2 days after his supposed crash. 2 days, which meant somebody staged that wreck. Somebody wanted me to believe Ben was dead while they kept him somewhere else, alive or worse. I replayed the clip a dozen times, listening for something I might have missed, a clue, a name, anything. Behind Ben, I could see a bare concrete wall and a single hanging bulb. His hands were cuffed in front of him. "Redwood isn't what you think," he said. "They're not building land. They're burying something under it." The video glitched there, his face freezing mid-sentence. My heart was hammering so hard it hurt. "Burying something?" What the hell did that mean? I scrubbed back, played it again, but the clip cut off right before he could finish. Then the screen went black, and a new message appeared in white text. "Location trace initiated." My pulse spiked. Someone, or something, knew I was watching. I slammed the laptop shut, the air feeling thick and electric, like the room itself was breathing with me. For a second I just listened. No cars outside, no wind, no hum of power lines, just silence. I unplugged the laptop, pulled the battery and sat back, trying to steady my thoughts. "Redwood isn't what you think." Those words looped in my head like a broken song. The last time I heard Ben talk like that, he was standing in my kitchen, smiling like he'd finally cracked the code. And now here he was again, a ghost talking through pixels, reaching out from somewhere that didn't want him reaching anyone. I leaned back in the chair, staring at the dark screen, my reflection barely visible. "All right, Ben," I whispered. "You got my attention." I didn't know if he could hear me, but deep down I had this feeling he wanted me to follow the trail, and I was damn sure going to.
I booted the laptop again, this time offline, no Wi-Fi, no trace. My fingers shook as I pulled up the file properties, scrolling through the metadata line by line. Most of it was stripped. Whoever sent that file knew what they were doing. But one thing slipped through, a GPS coordinate embedded in the video cache. It wasn't an exact address, more like a fragment. 39.40 90 Missouri. Somewhere near the Mississippi line. I stared at it, the numbers burning into my brain. That was close, too close, to where Ben's car crashed. If this was real, if he recorded that message after the crash, then someone dragged him out of that wreck the same way I'd been pulled from mine. And that meant one thing. The same people who saved me had him. I printed the coordinates, slid the paper into my jacket pocket, and started packing up. Claire was asleep in the other room, her breathing soft and steady. I didn't want to wake her, not yet. The less she knew, the safer she'd be. At least that's what I told myself. I threw on my coat and stepped outside. The air was thick with humidity, the kind that makes every breath feel heavy. Streetlights buzzed overhead, casting halos on wet asphalt. The motel parking lot was empty except for an old blue Seton parked 3 spots down. Its engine was running, no driver, just the low hum of an idling motor. My gut twisted. I stood there a moment, pretending to smoke a cigarette, eyes flicking toward the car's reflection in a rain puddle. The windshield wipers moved once, slow and deliberate, like a blink. Someone was inside, watching me. I pretended not to notice and walked toward the vending machine near the office. My pulse was pounding so hard I could taste copper. When I turned back, the sedan's headlights flicked on, then off again. A warning, or a message. Either way, it was clear. I wasn't the only one tracking that video. I went back to the room, locked the door, and sat on the bed in the dark. Every instinct in me screamed, run, but another voice whispered, stay. Ben wanted me to see that video. Whoever was in that car wanted me scared enough not to follow it. I rubbed my temples and whispered, sorry, Ben. Looks like we're both ghosts now. By morning, I was back on the road. a cracked map on the passenger seat, a thermos of gas station coffee, and that paper with the coordinates folded tight in my pocket. The sun hadn't come up yet, and the highway looked like a scar cutting through nothing. Every mile I drove, the world got quieter. Fewer lights, fewer signs of life, just long stretches of mist-covered fields and broken fences. The radio was nothing but static, so I talked to myself, like I always did when I was scared. "You should have stayed at the motel, Frank," I muttered. "Let it go. Let the dead rest," but I couldn't. The more I tried to convince myself to turn around, the more Ben's voice echoed in my head. "They're not building land. They're burying something under it." Around noon, I hit the edge of an old industrial town, the kind that died long before its people did. Rusted factories, boarded-up diners, streets that hadn't seen a repair crew since before I was born. My GPS was useless, so I followed the paper map, counting road markers, until I reached a narrow gravel road that looked like it hadn't been driven in years. My gut told me this was it. I turned in. The trees swallowed me almost instantly. Tall, skeletal things that blocked out most of the light. It felt less like driving and more like descending. The deeper I went, the slower the car felt, like the air itself was thicker here. About 5 miles in, the road ended at a chain-link gate wrapped in barbed wire. A faded sign hung crooked from one post. "Redwood Development, authorized personnel only." My stomach dropped. The name hit me like a slap. Redwood. This wasn't a development site anymore. The place was abandoned. Overgrown, forgotten. But someone still cared enough to keep the gate locked. I killed the engine and sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, staring at that sign. Then I saw it. A small red light blinking faintly above the gate. A motion sensor. They were still watching this place. I climbed out quietly, keeping low, and walked the perimeter until I found a break in the fence. The silence was so heavy it pressed against my ears. Somewhere deep inside the compound, I heard a faint hum. Not power lines, not wind, it's something mechanical. That's when I noticed the ground. Fresh dirt, a long rectangular patch running beside the fence, smooth and recently turned. Like something had been buried there. Or someone. I slipped through the hole in the fence, heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The air inside the compound was colder, sharper, like the whole place was holding its breath. I moved slow, careful, staying close to the shadows. Half-buried machinery lay everywhere, rusted and skeletal, like the remains of some forgotten war. Most of the buildings were collapsed or gutted, their windows dark, roofs caved in. But one structure stood out, a large metal warehouse at the center, lights faintly glowing through cracks in the panels. Someone had power. Someone was here. I crept closer, boots sinking in wet dirt. The hum I'd heard earlier grew louder, steady, rhythmic, mechanical. Then I realized it wasn't machinery. It was a generator. That sound I'd followed from the road was coming from inside that warehouse. I edged up to a window and peered through a gap in the sheet metal. Inside, rows of servers lined the walls, their blue indicator lights flickering like stars. A makeshift desk sat in the middle of the room, cluttered with hard drives, cables, and 2 old monitors. On one of them was a paused video, Ben's face again, frozen mid-blink. My stomach twisted. Whoever was running this place had his footage, maybe all of it. I circled around to the side door, keeping my breathing shallow. The door was padlocked, but the hinges were rusted enough to pry open with a crowbar. I found near a pile of scrap. It gave way with a metallic shriek that cut through the silence like a scream. I froze, waiting, listening at nothing. I stepped inside. The hum of the generator filled the space, vibrating through the floor. The screens flickered to life on their own. One by one, the monitors lit up with static before showing different security feeds, all black and white, all empty rooms except one. In the corner of one frame, barely lit by a swinging bulb, was a chair. A man sat in it, head down, motionless. I stepped closer, staring at the screen, my throat dry. The timestamp read that the footage was live, 20 seconds old. My pulse spiked as I leaned in. The man lifted his head just enough for the light to catch his face. My whole body went numb. It was Ben, alive, eyes open, looking straight into the camera. And then, like he knew I was watching, he spoke. Not to whoever was filming, to me. "Frank, get out." I spun around so fast I nearly fell. Something clanged in the dark corner of the room. Metal against concrete. I aimed my flashlight, the beam catching movement. Boots, 2 pairs. Someone was already in the building with me. My flashlight flickered as I stumbled backward, the beam jerking across the walls. For a second, I thought it was just nerves, the echo of my own breathing. But then I heard it again, heavy boots crunching on gravel, getting closer. "Claire?" I whispered, but I knew it wasn't her. The sound came from the other end of the warehouse. Slow, deliberate steps, like whoever it was wanted me to hear them. My heartbeat drowned everything else out. I moved toward the exit, keeping my light low, trying not to make a sound. Then a voice cut through the dark, calm, familiar, wrong. "You just couldn't let it go, could you, Frank?" The flashlight slipped from my hand and clattered to the floor, the beam spinning wildly across the room. I recognized that voice. Daniel Cross, the man from the photo, Madison's investor. He stepped into the dim light, dressed like he'd just left a meeting. Clean suit, dry shoes, not a speck of dirt on him. "You should have stayed dead," he said, like he was scolding a child. "We gave you that mercy." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "Where's Ben?" I said. He smiled. That cold politician smile that never reaches the eyes. "Closer than you think." Behind him, another man moved, tall, masked, carrying something long and metallic. The hum of the generator grew louder, like the room itself was warning me to run. I bolted toward the side door. The first shot missed, hit metal, sent sparks flying. The second shattered the screen behind me. I dove behind a stack of crates, lungs burning, ears ringing. The video monitors flickered and glitched, Ben's frozen face flashing between static and a new message in red text. "Run!" My breath came in ragged bursts. I crawled toward the gap I'd entered through, heart slamming against my ribs. Another shot rang out, this one closer. The bullet punched through the wall, inches from my head. I hit the fence, shoved through the hole, tore my jacket, and sprinted for the tree line. The forest swallowed me in seconds, branches clawing at my arms, mud sucking at my boots. Behind me, I could hear voices shouting. One of them Daniel's, calm even as he ordered men to find me. "Bring him back alive," he said. "We still need him." I didn't stop, running until the lights from the compound disappeared behind the trees. I fell to my knees, gasping, soaked in sweat and rain. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One new message from an unknown number. No name, no signature. Just 3 words that froze my blood. "He's not Ben." Oh, your next episode, the man wearing Ben's face. Frank learns that the man he saw in the video isn't who he thought, and the truth behind Project Redwood is darker than death itself. Subscribe now and hit the bell. Episode 7 will leave you questioning everything you've heard so far.